and put it aside. Forget about it. All right? Absolutely. Forget about it. It's going to get you nowhere. Because discrimination is not illegal. I will say that again. Discrimination isn't illegal. Illegal discrimination is illegal. Yes, ma'am?
I think it is stereotyping.
Stereotyping is not illegal. It's not. It might be wrong. A lot of things are wrong. There's a lot of things I'd like to make crimes that aren't. It isn't illegal. Here's the deal. It is intrusive. But that's not necessarily illegal either. Discrimination, when we talk about discrimination, that generally emanates from the Equal Protection Clause. We've all heard of that, correct? Well, the courts have addressed that. When you think about the Equal Protection Clause, the first thing you think of is, well, it's an Equal Protection Clause. It says we all have to be treated equally under the law. They're singling me out. It's violating my rights under the Equal Protection Clause. Yes, ma'am?
Infringing on my rights because they don't have the reasons.
We're going to get back to it. We're going to get back there. We know that they can stop you at checkpoints now without reasonable suspicion, right? All right. But let's talk about discrimination. Here's what Justice Kennedy, in the case of Romer v. Evans, said about discrimination. He said, "Yet from the very beginning, the meaning of equal protection has at times been confusing. Perhaps because the framers of the 14th Amendment left us no explanation of exactly what they meant. On the other hand, the phrase could be read to mean that any law, no matter what common sense suggests, will be applied rigidly to all people. Such an extreme notion that laws cannot in any way, shape, manner discriminate among individual groups can be silly. Passing a vision test as a requirement for securing a driver's license clearly discriminates against people who are blind. Yet this is an appropriate distinction. So the law can't treat everyone the same. So what the courts have set up in determining whether you have a claim of illegal discrimination is the first thing they're going to ask you, are you a member of a protected class? If the government passes a law that discriminates you based upon your race, your religion, your gender, all that's illegal. Your alienage, they can't do that. But the mode of transportation that you use is not a protected class. And so my suggestion, if we are going to fight these, and this is always where I become unpopular, I'm not saying that it makes me angry that I'm being singled out as a motorcycle rider. What I'm saying is that if we are going to fight these, in my opinion, we ain't worth any more than anybody else in this room, but my opinion is, pick a basis that's going to work. All right? Going in and jumping and discrimination might make us feel better. It's not going to get us anywhere. All right? But I do believe there's some things that we can do. And there are certain things that we can do at the checkpoints to help us get there. All right? One of the things that we can do, there's two ways, I believe, to fight it. One, judicially. Second, legislatively. All right? Judicially, I will use what New York is doing. And New York is doing an outstanding job. All right? They're doing a great job. Up in New York, the police have been, what's the right word?
Profiling.
That'd be appropriate.
Overzealous.
Assholes would be appropriate. I'm going to use zealous. All right? What you're not going to get any argument here. All right? What they've been doing up in New York is they've been doing these motorcycle checkpoints, and they have been checking for licenses. They have been checking for equipment. They have had members of the anti-gang task force recording VIN numbers to check for stolen motorcycles. Now, so here's how that's problematic. What does the VIN number have to do with highway safety? Nothing. All right? Nothing at all.
They were checking for recalls.
Yeah.
You work for the government, right?
Don't give them any suggestions. Right? The type of exhaust that you might have on your bike. I am unaware of any statistics, but is there anyone in this room that can point me to statistics that point to any exhaust system that caused an accident? I'm unaware of it. Right? When you got the dogs there running around the motorcycle sniffing for narcotics, I don't know what that has to do with highway safety. And what the argument that they've made up in New York, and the decision hasn't come out, but I believe it's going to be successful, is that these motorcycle-only checkpoints don't have jack to do with highway safety. And they violate the constitutional rules that have been set up for checkpoints. And I think they're going to be successful. And I think it'll work in any state, because be it Georgia, be it in Virginia, they cannot help but be looking after the exhausts and the helmets and all the other crap that go along with it. All right? So legislatively, I think they're going to win there, and I think that is certainly an aspect that we can use in every state. Now, how do we attack them legislatively? Well, that starts with judicially. I'm sorry. That starts with you. It starts with the people who get pulled over. All right? I think there are certain things that you can do and certain things you should not do at these checkpoints. All right. Let's start with the things that you should not do before we go into what you should do.
Argue.
Yes, number one, argue. Do not be argumentative. Do not be argumentative. All right.
I'm screwed.
That is not going to help you. It is not going to help you. And quite frankly, it takes your focus off of what you should be focusing on, what's going around you, because there are certain things you can pay attention to that will help us attack these judicially in the court system. Plus, it can lead to bad things. If you were ever involved in a traffic stop and it ends up on CNN, you did something wrong. Alright? I'm serious. Do not argue. I will give you an example. An example from a client of mine. I was giving a talk. It was in Virginia, and it was about what to do during traffic stops. And they were talking about getting pulled over and the officers asking for your helmet. And I said, be polite, but I would tell the officer, I do not believe that you have probable cause that my helmet is illegal, and I don't consent to you seizing my property. So if you want to remove it from me, I'm not going to resist, but I'm not giving it to you because I don't think you have a right to have it. A perfectly reasonable position to take. Not obstructing the officers in any way. Well, my client followed that advice, kind of.
This sounds good.
And it was on film, so I was representing him in the obstruction of justice charge that came from the stop. And so we're sitting there in court, and I'm standing up there, and the officers testified, and I got my client. Of course, there's the judge, there's the clerk, and the officer's playing the tape. And you see the officer come up, he goes, sir, I don't think that helmet's legal, and I want you to hand it over. And he goes, if you want my helmet, you're going to have to take it from me. I'm like, oh, crap. And this isn't going to turn out good. And so then the cops, immediately overreacts, backs up, hand on the pistol, and he's like, sir, I need that helmet. He goes, my lawyer says I don't have to give it to you. And then the next question is, who's your lawyer? And I'm like, oh, shit, forget my name. Matt Danielson, really clear. And the clerk over here is laughing, she's smiling. The judge, he wasn't laughing. He didn't think that was funny at all. So we ended up, you got found not guilty, but we had to go through a whole lot of crap that we wouldn't have had to go through if we'd just been polite. So be polite, all right? Be polite. It's a funny story. You don't want to be the subject of a funny story. So don't do that, all right? Also, two, going back to Cindy, you may be asked certain information at a checkpoint. How many people here have been, even if it's not a checkpoint, it's a traffic stop, and you start getting questioned about things that have nothing to do with what you were stopping? Huh? Haven't? Sure. All right? Happens all the time. Where you been? Where are you coming from? Who do you ride with? All right? This brings us to the Fifth Amendment. One of the most important rules in this entire talk. The Fifth Amendment. What's the Fifth Amendment?
Self-incrimination.
The right